Hey guys, 125 here watching the Grapple of HTV-5.
Houston, and welcome to our live coverage of the arrival of the Japanese HTV cargo vehicle to the International Space Station. Getting a quick look inside of the International Space Station Flight Control Room. The Orbit 1 team working with flight controllers on the other side of the globe at the Japanese Mission Control Center in Tsukuba, watching the final moments of the arrival of the Japanese HTV vehicle, currently just under 140 meters away from the International Space Station. You can see the cargo craft there. It's running about 20 minutes ahead of the timeline right now. Currently still on track to dock, though, due to lighting constraints this morning at 5:55 a.m. Central Time, 6:55 a.m. Eastern. Again, you can see it right in the center of your screen there. The International Space Station itself, currently about 250 statute miles over the Earth's surface. HTV on its way. Up until this point, has ticked off each of its milestones without any issue. No issues with the vehicle being tracked. Again, right now, just past the 130-meter mark. The next major milestone for the HTV vehicle will be its arrival at the 30-meter hold position, at which point it'll camp out there while the station is lined up and ready for that final grapple.
We will be station keeping at 30 meters for 45 minutes. Station keeping at 30 meters is a better option for prop consumption. And the reason why we keep station keep at 30 meters is so that we can arrive at the capture point at the beginning of the daylight.
Okay, copy all.
Hold on, that's Crete, I've been there.
Schedule, and we will be performing station keeping at 30 meters for about 45 minutes.
For once I know where the station is.
And the voices that you're going to be hearing throughout this morning's operation here in Mission Control, leading the team on consoles, lead flight director for HTV-5 Royce Renfrew, and right next to him, Japanese astronaut Koichi Wakata, serving as the Capcom, talking to the crew on board, crew of Expedition 44. Inside the station's cupola, monitoring this final approach and getting ready for the robotic grapple operations. Two Expedition 44 astronauts, Japanese astronaut Kimiya Yui and NASA astronaut Kjell Lindgren. Yui's going to be primed for operating the station's robotic arm, Canadarm2, to reach out and grapple with this unmanned cargo craft. Kjell Lindgren monitoring the vehicle and backing him up. And then in the final stages of docking, they're going to be joined by NASA astronaut Scott Kelly to help keep an extra eye on that vehicle. And as you just heard mentioned, the next major milestone going to be the arrival at that 30-meter point. HTV right now running about 20 minutes or so ahead of its schedule, but once it arrives at that 30-meter point, it's going to camp out for a little bit longer than the timeline, basically to get back on the timeline, as the major constraint right now for actually grappling with the vehicle is going to be daylight, as the next sunset is scheduled to come at 4:45 a.m. Central Time, so just a little under 30 minutes from now they'll have to wait for sunrise, and then for that capture window to open back up, so the lighting becomes agreeable for the arrival at that capture point at about 5:34, 5:35 a.m. Central Time, at which point it'll be moved into that capture point. They'll get a go-no-go from the teams here and out at the Japanese flight control room in Tsukuba, for the astronauts to reach out and grapple with that Canadarm and grapple with this multi-ton spacecraft, bringing up several thousand pounds, of supplies to the International Space Station. The HTV vehicle that you can see there, the black solar arrays wrapped around the vehicle structure, two cargo compartments inside, one pressurized, one unpressurized, carrying over 4.5 tons of supplies for the Expedition 44 crew, and a lot of hardware and experiment hardware on board. Also, two new full-sized racks for the International Space Station. HTV Since the retirement of Shuttle, the only cargo vehicle able to carry those large phone booth size racks that hold anything from experiments to a lot of station systems. On board the new multi-purpose small payload rack, just basically a rack that's able to house any number of experiments. Also on board is a rack that's going to be used as the new space station galley, basically the kitchen, where a number of items like water dispenser, food warmer, and other things that are kind of scattered around the station right now are all going to be housed in, and they'll have a new centralized location for all of those devices. Also on board, though, in total, 9,522 pounds of cargo. Of that, about 8,000 is pressurized, consisting of crew supplies and vehicle hardware, also science experiments, spacewalking gear, and computer resources, things like cameras and other necessary computer hardware for this space station crew. Also, in the unpressurized compartment, weighing in at 1,460 pounds, is the calorimetric telescope, basically a new deep space study experiment. The calorimetric electron telescope, also known as CALIT, is going to be searching for signatures of dark matter from the International Space Station. That'll be installed out on the exposed facility of the Japanese experiment module. So again, a little over 9,500 pounds of cargo coming up in this HTV vehicle. I'm going to be adding in a lot of food and other consumable supplies for the station to continue pushing out that consumable lifetime for the crew on board until well into the end of 2015, and pushing a number of the consumables out into 2016. So getting the station in a much better situation currently with supplies through most of the fall, but HTV bringing up quite a bit for the crew. The station itself right now just about to cross over Central Asia. Again, they're just about high noon now for a orbital daytime. That sunset scheduled to come in just about 23 minutes. And right now we're just under 12 minutes away from the arrival at that 30-meter hold point. HTV currently about 86 meters away from the International Space Station. Currently at the end of its almost 5-day journey. It's been 4 days, 21 hours, and 32 minutes since HTV launched successfully from the Tanegashima Space Center back on Wednesday, August 19th. The launch of the H-2B rocket went flawlessly. The first stage powering it into orbit, lifting off at 6:50 a.m. Central Time, again last Wednesday, August 19th, almost 5 days, just a couple of hours away from 5 days now. The H-2B rocket, a two-stage rocket with 4 strap-on solid rocket boosters, able to put HTV into its preliminary orbit following that launch. Again, that was 6:50 a.m. Central Time here, but 8:50 p.m. at night over in Japan, from which the rocket took off from.
After liftoff, the launch vehicle operation control was...
And this launch went flawlessly, no issues with the rocket or the vehicle. The first stage and the second stage performing perfectly during the climb to orbit. The launch route coming off, and HTV putting into its preliminary height into space before it could begin its 4 to 5 day trek to chase down the International Space Station and get us to where we are right now. But for now, continuing to get in a little bit closer. It'll arrive at that 30-meter hold point in just about 10 minutes from now. Currently targeted at about 4:34 a.m. Central Time. Once it's there, it'll camp out, and the teams here in Mission Control will make sure that the International Space Station in its proper attitude, and the teams ready to support that capture of the HTV vehicle. Flight Director Roy Spencer will go around the room here and also ping the other mission control centers around the world to make sure they are go for capture, at which point the crew will get the go-ahead. Again, Kamiya Yui Space Exploration Agency prime for this morning's grapple. He's being backed up by NASA astronaut Chellinger, and currently the two of them inside the cupola monitoring this HTV approach. Everything continuing to look good so far today, actually getting a little bit ahead of schedule. Before this, it had arrived at about 250 meters, staying outside of basically an imaginary keep-out sphere, which all vehicles stop at before they get to go to enter. Once they enter inside that keep-out sphere, the crew on board having the capability to issue an abort if communications are lost with the ground for any reason, or anything with the vehicle begins to go out of spec, anything off nominal. The International Space Station itself maneuvered to its capture attitude. That maneuver beginning right at around 3:52 a.m. Central Time, complete just about 8 minutes later at the top of the hour. The go-no-go to depart 250 meters happened at 4:04 a.m. With the vehicle departing just about 1 minute later. So at this point, range is 63 meters in closing, just about 8 minutes away from that 30-meter hold point.
Oh, that's an awesome marking. Look, oh, just that looks like I'm. Oh my gosh. Look at that, looks like the HTV version of the piggy bank, but I do not speak. My brain is thinking of a different thing.
So the team's continuing to stand by, waiting for that arrival. HTV currently 54 meters in closing, just under 7 minutes away from that 30-meter point. The team's out at Scuba, responsible for controlling the vehicle up until this point. Overseeing the flight of HTV-5, the fifth. HTV, the HTV transfer vehicle to travel to the International Space Station. This is the first one since 2013, which was August of 2013, so just about 2 years, a little more than 2 years since that last vehicle brought supplies up to the space station cruise. And HTV, definitely one of the larger vehicles currently capable of servicing the space station, has the cargo capacity of just about double a Russian Progress, actually. This one packed with close to 5 tons of supplies. You can see a breakdown of the vehicle here, the pressurized logistics carrier at the top end of the vehicle, which will be docking to the station, packed with over 8,000 pounds of pressurized cargo. Then in that unpressurized section, able to carry experiment payloads that'll ultimately be exposed to the vacuum in the environment of space, much like the trunk on a SpaceX Dragon. HTV capable of carrying these exposed payloads. Right now, one that's going to be searching for signs of dark matter and the origin of cosmic rays. That'll be attached to the external portion of the Japanese experiment module. You can see a shot here before the full vehicle was integrated with that CALET experiment locked in place. But the team's continuing to keep an eye on everything. We're under 5 minutes now at about 42 meters away. Should be getting some views back of this HTV vehicle in just a couple of minutes here.
Not much is going on. Because the station, I'm presuming, is out of radio, you know, out of downlink range of Tejas or something. Oh, there's HTV. I choose the perfect time to look up.
Use the station on 2 for quarter monitoring.
We're listening on 2, Chell.
Koichi, on monitor 1, the lights in the corridor, the vehicle is equal to or matches the outline. The light is essentially centered on the circle, and the circle is essentially centered on the corridor center. For monitor 3, the light is in the corridor, the size matches the outline. The light is offset from the circle about a half a vehicle width to the port and is centered forward to aft. The circle is centered on the light is centered on the circle, and the circle is sorry about that. Sorry, the circle is centered on the corridor center.
We copy all. Thanks for the great report.
So if you don't know, Koichi has like sort of recently returned from the station. By sort of recently, I mean quite a long time ago, but still not too long. It was his crew that came down before Maxim, Gerst, and Wiseman went up.
So right now, HTV-5 at that 30-meter hold point, arriving right at about 4:33 a.m. Central Time. Teams down here crunching some numbers real quick, seeing if they can possibly move up this capture. Again, everything going to be hinging around the lighting conditions. The sun will need to be up for the crew to actually reach out and capture this vehicle. It's going to be setting in about 11 minutes. Coming back up right at about 5:20 a.m. Central Time. So there, a great view of HTV-5 currently sitting at its 30-meter hold point. And so again, the teams here in Mission Control Houston crunching the numbers, looking at possibly staying ahead on this timeline. Looking now like they might be departing this 30-meter hold point at about 4:55 a.m. Central Time. That's just a little under 20 minutes ahead of, or a little over 20 minutes ahead of schedule.
Go on to.
Joe, please confirm 30-meter hold, then set up and brief for capture per step 8 in 1.102. Right now, the plan is to depart 30-meter at 9:55, and that will put us arrival at the capture point at the sunrise.
Okay, copy. We can confirm that we have 30-meter hold. Our mode is R-bar approach. Our sub-mode is hold. Our LEDs match predicted in step 8, and we will proceed with step 3. You can expect departure from 30-meter hold at 9:55 for a capture at sunrise.
Joe, good readback.
And Capcom Koichi Wakata, a Japanese astronaut here in Mission Control, confirming the updated timeline now with NASA astronaut Kjell Lindgren, who's standing by inside of the station's cupola, alongside with his fellow Expedition 44 crew member Kamiya Yui. So the plan now, leaving that 30-meter hold point a little bit earlier, just about 15 minutes from now at 4:55 a.m. Central Time. You'll hear 9:55 the station and the control rooms down here on the ground operating in GMT to keep everybody synced up, but they're going to keep themselves about 20 minutes ahead of the timeline, arriving at that capture point at or a little bit before sunrise, which is going to occur at 5:20 a.m. Central Time this morning. You can see the station crossing over the terminator line, passing into that orbital nighttime. The sun itself just about to set in 4 minutes or so on the station crew. HTV reflecting the last bits of sunlight as the sun sets on the station, HTV and the Expedition 44 crew. Currently at that 30-meter hold point, should be departing in just about 13 minutes or so. This view in high definition actually from the HDev cameras currently strapped to the bottom of the International Space Station. The high definition Earth viewing cameras providing round-the-clock views of the Earth from 250 statute miles above. Anytime we have video connection with the International Space Station, those cameras alive and active. And in this view, you can see the space station's robotic arm there right in the center of your screen, poised and ready to reach out and grapple with HTV once it arrives at that capture point. At the controls today, Japanese astronaut Kamiya Yui being backed up by NASA astronaut Kjell Lindgren, who's been helping to monitor HTV on this final approach, just 4 days and almost 22 hours since its launch from the Tanegashima Space Center in Japan. So in just a couple of minutes, lead HTV flight director Royce Renfrew is going to poll the teams here. So HTV continuing to hold at that 30-meter point. Both the station and the HTV vehicle currently flying over the Pacific in that orbital nighttime. The sun setting just a couple of minutes ago. Sunrise currently scheduled at about 5:20 a.m. Central. Right now, Royce Renfrew going around the room and getting a go-no-go to depart this 30-meter hold point. After that, HTV will inch its way up towards the capture point, at which point the crew members on board, Kamiya Yui and Kjell Lindgren, will be able to reach out and grapple the vehicle with the robotic arm once the sun comes back up and they have the right lighting conditions. Again, everything running about 20 minutes ahead of schedule today, so that grapple could be coming as early as about 5:30 a.m. Central Time or so, but of course we'll keep an eye on it and on the timeline as it updates. The Japanese flight control team working to finalize just a couple more checkouts before they get the go to depart this 30-meter hold point. And the teams here in Mission Control Houston also standing by. Control of the robotic arm is going to get handed off to the ground once HTV is grappled. The robotics flight controllers here will be responsible for maneuvering HTV to its final attachment point at the Earth-facing side of Harmony.
Station Houston on 2 for HTV and robotics.
Go on 2.
HL, please let us know when you are complete with step 3.2 in the robo procedure 1.110 HTV capture.
Copy. We're just about done.
Copy. Thanks.
So the crew on board finishing up a few more checkouts with the robotic systems, and the team out at Scuba performing some final checkouts of the vehicle as it hangs out at 30 meters.
Use the station on 2 for HTV.
Go ahead. HL on 2.
Crew is ready for HTV approach to capture point.
We copy. Thanks. Station Houston on 2 for HTV. HTV is ready to proceed to capture point. Please expect approach to resume shortly.
Station copies.
Okay, and now we're standing by to get confirmation that HTV has departed that 30-meter hold point. It's going to make its way up slowly to the capture point, wait for the right lighting conditions, and then the crew members will be able to reach out and grapple with the vehicle.
Station Houston on 2 for HTV.
On 2.
Shell, HTV has begun approach from 30 meters. Please monitor per step 9er in 1.102.
Houston, we have approach mode of R-bar approach, the sub-mode of approach. Our nav range is 30, our prox range is 35 and decreasing.
We copy all, thank you.
So the confirmation that the HTV vehicle has departed that 30-meter point, coming at 4:58 a.m. Central Time. So now that HTV has departed that 30-meter hold point, it takes just about 20 minutes or so to arrive at the capture point, right at about 18 minutes and 50 seconds right now.
The vehicle is, the light is within the corridor, vehicle size matches the outline. The lights are centered on the circle, and the circles are centered on the corridor center.
We copy all, good words, thank you.
HTV-5 continuing to slowly approach in the dark, just a little under 16.5 minutes away from the arrival at that capture point, departing the 30-meter hold point right at about 4:58 a.m. Central Time, so just about 4 minutes ago. Everything running about 20 minutes ahead of the schedule today for HTV-5. Should be arriving just around sunrise, currently targeted to take place at 5:20 a.m. Central Time this morning. The crew members on board need to wait for the proper lighting conditions to reach out with that robotic arm and capture the unmanned cargo craft. But everything continuing to proceed smoothly, about 15.5 minutes away from that capture point. It'll be roughly 10 meters or so away from the station at that point. The teams down here on the ground will do a final go-no-go for capture, and then it'll be all up to the Expedition 44 crew members inside the cupola, Kamiya Prime, and Kjell Lindgren backing him up to reach out with Canadarm2 and capture that vehicle.
Station Houston on 2 for HTV. We're expecting that the sunrise will happen about 90 seconds after the HTV arrives at the capture point.
Okay, we copy. We're monitoring. Houston on 2, Block B monitoring remains unchanged from previous.
VVO copies. Thank you.
HTV continuing to inch its way along, just under 9.5 minutes now away from the planned arrival at the capture point. Sunrise should be coming in just a little over 10 minutes from now. Inside the cupola, Community Yui and Chell Lingering continuing to stand by and monitor the vehicle. Their hands at the controls for the station's robotic arm, ready to reach out and grapple with this unmanned cargo craft. Everything continuing to go well this morning for the Japanese vehicle, running still about 20 minutes ahead of the timeline. The clocks here in Mission Control indicating a capture could come as early as 5:36 a.m. Central Time this morning, which will be 19 minutes earlier than the originally planned time of 5:55 a.m. And HTV well within the sights now of the station's robotic arm. This camera looking right down the barrel at the unmanned cargo craft, just about a little over 4 minutes and 10 seconds away from arrival at that capture point. So under 2 minutes now from capture point arrival. You can see HTV and the grapple fixture on the vehicle there. This view right down the barrel of the space station's robotic arm. Kamiya Yui and Kjell Lindgren are going to be at the controls. Yui's going to be prime, Lindgren backing him up. The pair of them monitoring the vehicle or today's approach. The sun should be showing back up in just about 3 minutes from now. And then once the right lighting conditions are in place, the crew will be able to get the go from the teams down here on the ground to reach out and grapple with HTV.
Station Houston on 2 for HTV.
Go on 2.
Joe, please confirm capture point hold per step 10 in 1.102.
Copy. And we have a PV mode of capture point hold with a submode of capture point SK. Our nav range is 9.2 with zeros for rate.
We copy all. Thank you.
In Koichi, we have grapple fixtures within the capture volume on both cameras.
Good news. We copy all. Thank you.
So everybody confirming HTV has arrived at the capture point just around 9 meters away right now from the station. That capture point arrival coming at 5:17 a.m. Central Time this morning. And so now the team lighting conditions and then do one final go. Once everybody gives the go, Kamiya Yui will be responsible for driving the robotic arm out to grapple with HTV. This view coming from the camera right on the robotic arm.
Station Houston on 2 for HTV.
On 2.
Shell FRGF step is enabled. Please prepare for capture per step 11 in 1.102.
Copy that FRGF step is enabled. I have a matching LED pattern. Our capture prep is confirmed, and we are ready for HTV capture.
That's a good sign. I think that's a cupola. But there's just like a video of something from it.
And Shell, please stand by for capture.
So the crew on board ready. Lead HTV Flight Director Roy Frenfrew getting a final go, no-go from all of the teams down here on the ground and at the HTV Flight Control Center out in Tsukuba, Japan. You can see the sun now up. HTV now back in the sunlight for conditions appropriate for this capture.
Station Houston on 2 for HTV.
On 2.
You have a go for HTV capture sequence, step 4 in robotics procedure 1.110, HTV capture. And please begin monitoring the back of HU card.
We are go for capture. We'll start in step 4, 1.110, HTV capture, monitoring the IQ card.
Good feedback.
So the go given, the crew ready, and at this point, Kamiya Yui, the Japanese astronaut, on board at the controls of the robotic arm, can be reaching out and grappling with this vehicle currently about 9 meters away or so from the International Space Station. On board more than 4.5 tons of supplies and equipment for the expedition, 44 crew to begin unloading once this vehicle gets attached just a few hours from now. But the next step, the actual grapple, will have an exact time for you once that does occur.
Was HTV meant to be at an angle like that, or like, you know, they could rotate it slightly different than station? And I mean, if you're looking down the yaw axis, if you see what I mean, relative to, I'm presuming that's Columbus, it's off. I don't know if it's supposed to be like that, because I've never seen a HTV docking, grapple, berthing, anything. The only HTV thing I've seen is the launch, and that's the one I just watched. Should be go to grapple, so.
So the station and HTV flying over South America as they cross into this orbital daytime should be just under 10 minutes away from capture of HTV-5. It'll be a slow and methodical process for Kimi to reach out with Canadarm2 and grapple with the unmanned cargo vehicle. And the station in its free drift, making sure it keeps the same attitude with HTV. And the robotic flight controller here in Houston confirming our motion has begun.
Oh yeah, they've begun grapple sequence. Very slowly, you can see kind of numbers. That is pretty close to the speed at which it's actually extending, like. It's moving closer at. Just judging it is moving closer around like that speed. It's actually pretty decent speed for like. You don't want to go, and then all of a sudden there's a hole in HTV. And no grapple fixture, that would be the bigger problem. Like if it.
And 3 meters in closing.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, if you hit somewhere that's in the HTV that's not pressurized and not the grapple fixture, you'd still be pretty much fine. You might damage the payload and things, but it shouldn't be too bad. I say should because I'm not an expert at
2 meters in closing. Immediately at the robotic controls.
That's still actually pretty
just
far.
Just about grappled with HTV-5. 1 meter.
Oh yeah. And contact.
And capture confirmed 5:28 a.m. Central Time, 6:28 Eastern, as the station flying just about 250 statute miles to the south of Brazil over South America. So HTV-5 now in the hands of Expedition 44, grappled to that robotic arm, delivering over 4.5 tons of supplies to the International Space Station.
Okay, I'm going to end the video here because there's not much going to happen on this live stream. So yeah, everybody's happy. I'm Boss25. Goodbye. For now, back for birthing. And by that I mean docking of HTV.